What would you do if your parents told you that you weren't worth investing in? That's exactly what happened to me when they decided to pay for my sister's college education while leaving me to fend for myself. Their message was clear. Lily had potential. I didn't. But rejection has a funny way of revealing what you're really made of. While she struggled through her funded degree, I built an empire from nothing. When they finally saw what I had accomplished, their shock was everything I had dreamed of. Growing up in the Wilson household meant understanding your place from an early age. The hierarchy was established before I could even walk properly. Lily sat at the top as the cherished daughter while I occupied the role of the disappointment they tolerated. Our ranch-style home in suburban Detroit had 4 bedrooms, but only one daughter who mattered. The family portraits lining our hallway told the story perfectly. In every photo, Lily beamed from the center while I stood slightly behind or to the side, like an afterthought someone remembered to include at the last second. My parents, Robert and Diana Wilson, appeared successful to neighbors and friends. Dad worked as a regional sales manager for an automotive parts company, while Mom taught 4th grade at the local elementary school. Their combined income provided a comfortable middle-class lifestyle with annual vacations to Florida and a savings account that should have covered both daughters' futures. But comfort breeds complacency, and my parents had already decided which daughter deserved their investment. Christmas mornings revealed the true depth of their favoritism. Lily would wake up to find expensive electronics gaming systems and designer clothes wrapped in pristine paper under the tree. Her pile of gifts reached halfway up the wall, while mine consisted of generic clothing from discount stores and educational books that felt more like assignments than presents. When I turned 12, I asked Mom why Lily received a new laptop while I got a basic calculator. She explained that Lily showed more academic promise and needed better tools to reach her potential. The message was clear. I wasn't worth the investment. School events amplified the disparity in their support. For Lily's debate tournaments, both parents would arrive early to claim front row seats, cheering loudly when she spoke. They would take her out for celebratory dinners regardless of whether she won or lost. When I competed in math competitions, I rode the school bus while they stayed home claiming work obligations. My victories earned brief acknowledgement at dinner before conversation shifted back to Lily's latest accomplishments. Dad would pat my shoulder and say math was useful, but reminded me that people skills mattered more in the real world. Their daily interactions reinforced the message that Lily was special while I was ordinary. Mom would spend hours helping Lily with homework projects, creating elaborate displays and researching topics together. When I asked for similar help, she would point me toward my textbooks and suggest I figure things out independently. Dad would light up when discussing Lily's teacher's comments about her creativity and leadership potential. My straight-A report cards received polite nods before being filed away without celebration. The pattern extended beyond academics into every aspect of our lives. Lily received driving lessons from a professional instructor, while I learned from YouTube videos in empty parking lots. She got a car for her 16th birthday, while I was told that transportation was a privilege I needed to earn. When friends visited our house, they always gravitated toward Lily's room with its fresh paint and modern furniture, while my space remained unchanged from childhood, with hand-me-down decorations and mismatched furniture. Grandmother Eleanor provided the only refuge from this constant dismissal. During summer visits to her cottage in northern Michigan, she would sit with me on the dock while I sketched the lake and surrounding trees. She listened when I talked about my ideas for starting businesses or creating solutions to problems I noticed. While my parents dismissed these interests as unrealistic daydreams, Grandma Eleanor encouraged me to think bigger. She would tell me that some people need to work twice as hard to get half the recognition, but that the strength developed through struggle becomes an advantage later in life. Those conversations with Grandma Eleanor planted seeds of determination that grew stronger each year. I began studying successful entrepreneurs who had overcome family rejection and financial obstacles. I read biographies of business leaders who had built empires from nothing and discovered that many of them had been underestimated by people who should have supported them. These stories gave me hope that my parents' limited vision of my potential didn't define what I could achieve. By high school, I had developed a clear understanding of my situation. My parents had chosen their favorite, and no amount of achievement would change their minds. Lily could coast on their support and encouragement while I needed to create my own path to success. This realization was both heartbreaking and liberating. I stopped seeking their approval and started building the foundation for my own future. I joined every business club available and excelled in courses related to economics and entrepreneurship. While Lily focused on social activities and relied on our parents for guidance, I was developing real world skills and making connections with teachers who recognized my potential. I started small ventures selling handmade items to classmates and offering tutoring services to younger students. These early experiences taught me that success was possible without family support. I just needed to work harder and smarter than everyone else to prove my worth. The acceptance letters arrived on the same Tuesday afternoon in March during our senior year. I remember the exact moment because I was reorganizing my business competition trophies when Mom called both Lily and me into the living room. She held two identical envelopes from Westfield University with our names printed across the front in official lettering. For the first time in years, I felt genuine excitement about sharing a moment with my family. Both of us had been accepted to the same prestigious university, and for once, we were equals in this achievement. Dad smiled broadly as he opened both letters simultaneously and announced that we were officially Westfield students. Mom hugged us both, which felt unusual since physical affection was typically reserved for Lily's accomplishments. I allowed myself to believe that college would be different, that this shared milestone would finally bring equal treatment and recognition. After all, what parent wouldn't be proud to have both daughters accepted to a competitive university? The average cost of attending Westfield was around $50,000 per year, but our parents had always spoken about college as an inevitable part of our futures. That evening, Dad announced we would have a family meeting to discuss college planning. I spent the hours before dinner calculating rough estimates of tuition costs and assuming our parents had been saving equally for both educations. They had 18 years to prepare for this moment, and their combined income should have allowed for proper planning. I even felt grateful that they had been wise enough to set aside money for both daughters despite their obvious favoritism in other areas. College represented a fresh start where academic performance and genuine achievement would matter more than childhood dynamics. The family meeting took place in our formal dining room, which we only used for important occasions. Dad spread financial documents across the mahogany table, while Mom sat with her hands folded looking more serious than usual. I assumed they were about to explain the logistics of paying for two college educations simultaneously. Perhaps they would outline payment plans or discuss our responsibilities for contributing through part-time work. Lily and I sat across from them, waiting for details about our shared future at Westfield. Dad cleared his throat and began with congratulations about our acceptances before shifting to the financial reality. He explained that college costs had increased significantly since they began planning, and their savings weren't as robust as originally anticipated. The preliminary numbers suggested that funding both educations simultaneously would create serious financial strain on the family. I felt my stomach tighten as I realized this conversation was heading somewhere darker than expected. Then came the devastating announcement that changed everything. Dad stated that they had enough money saved to fully fund one daughter's education, but not both. Mom added that they needed to make a practical decision based on which investment would provide the best return for the family. I sat frozen as they explained their reasoning with the same clinical detachment Dad used when discussing quarterly reports at work. They had evaluated our academic records, extracurricular activities, and future potential to determine which daughter deserved their financial support. Their justification cut deeper than any previous rejection. They claimed that Lily demonstrated more academic promise despite my perfect 4.0 GPA throughout high school. They dismissed my business competition victories as interesting hobbies rather than indicators of real potential. Dad explained that Lily's well-rounded profile with strong grades and social leadership suggested she would maximize the value of their investment. Mom nodded in agreement, emphasizing that Lily's natural charisma would serve her better in professional settings. I attempted to argue my case by highlighting my academic achievements and entrepreneurial successes. I reminded them of the regional business plan competition I had won and the small ventures I had already launched successfully. Dad waved off these accomplishments, saying that business interests were too risky and unpredictable for serious consideration. He suggested that my focus on entrepreneurship showed lack of commitment to traditional career paths that would provide stable returns on educational investment. The final blow came when Mom delivered the words that would echo in my mind for years afterward. She looked directly at me and said that Lily deserved this opportunity because she had consistently shown more promise while I had always been more independent and capable of finding alternative paths. The unspoken message was clear. They believed Lily needed their support to succeed, while I was expected to manage on my own because helping me wasn't worth their limited resources. That night, I lay in bed processing the magnitude of what had happened. Years of smaller rejections had been building toward this ultimate dismissal of my worth and potential. My parents had literally put a price tag on their daughters and determined that I wasn't worth the investment. The pain was overwhelming, but underneath the heartbreak was a growing determination to prove them catastrophically wrong about my potential. I decided that night to attend Westfield University regardless of their decision. I would find a way to finance my own education and build the successful future they couldn't envision for me. Their rejection would become the fuel for achievements beyond anything they thought possible. My alarm clock buzzed at 5:30 every morning, signaling the start of another 18-hour day that had become my normal routine. By 6 a.m., I was walking to my first job at Sunrise Coffee, where I worked the opening shift before my 9 a.m. marketing class. The coffee shop job paid $8 per hour but provided flexible scheduling that allowed me to attend classes. After my morning shift, I would rush across campus still smelling like espresso to sit in lecture halls, where my classmates discussed weekend parties while I calculated how many hours I needed to work to make rent. My living situation reflected the harsh reality of financing my own education. I shared a cramped two-bedroom apartment with 3 other students 20 minutes from campus. The rent was split 4 ways, bringing my monthly housing cost to $300, but the space was barely habitable. We had one bathroom for 4 people, a kitchen with broken appliances and paper-thin walls that made studying nearly impossible. My bedroom was actually the converted dining room with no windows and barely enough space for a twin bed and small desk. The contrast with Lily's comfortable dorm room was painful every time I visited her. Financing my education required strategic planning that most 18-year-olds never needed to master. I had applied for every scholarship available through Westfield University and several external organizations. Merit-based awards covered about 30% of my tuition, while need-based grants provided additional support. The remaining balance required student loans, which created a problem since my parents refused to co-sign. Grandmother Eleanor stepped in to guarantee the loans using her house as collateral. She insisted this was her investment in my future and made me promise to never let anyone convince me I wasn't worth supporting. My second job at the campus bookstore provided insights that proved invaluable in my business courses. Working retail taught me about inventory management, customer service, and profit margins in ways that textbook theories never could. I watched students spend hundreds of dollars on books they would use for one semester and recognized the inefficiency in the system. I also noticed which students struggled financially and which ones had unlimited spending money from their parents. These observations sharpened my understanding of market dynamics and consumer behavior. The third job came from necessity when my expenses exceeded my income during sophomore year. I started offering tutoring services to struggling students, charging $20 per hour for subjects where I excelled. Word spread quickly, and soon I was booked solid with clients who needed help in economic statistics and business fundamentals. The tutoring work was exhausting after full days of classes and other jobs, but it provided flexible income and reinforced my own understanding of the material. Late nights in my cramped apartment became the birthplace of something much bigger than survival. Using skills learned in my digital marketing class, I created a simple website offering virtual assistant services to small businesses. I started by helping local shops manage their social media accounts and respond to customer emails. The work was tedious, but it paid better than my retail jobs and could be done on my own schedule. Within months, I had 12 regular clients paying me to handle their administrative tasks. What began as a desperate attempt to make ends meet evolved into a legitimate business opportunity. I discovered that many small business owners needed professional support but couldn't afford full-time employees. My virtual assistant services filled this gap perfectly. I learned to manage multiple client relationships while delivering consistent results that kept them coming back. By junior year, I was earning more from my business than from all three traditional jobs combined. The transformation in my academic performance was remarkable once I started applying real-world experience to classroom discussions. Professors began calling on me during lectures because my answers included practical examples from actual business operations. Classmates started asking for advice about their own projects and internship applications. I realized that my forced independence had given me advantages that money couldn't buy. My growing reputation attracted attention from university administrators who had been tracking my unusual combination of perfect grades and entrepreneurial success. The business department invited me to speak at orientation sessions for incoming students. Industry professionals who served as guest lecturers began asking about my services and referring potential clients. What started as survival had become recognition. The expansion into a full digital marketing agency happened naturally as my skills and reputation grew. I hired fellow students to help with client work, creating jobs for others who needed flexible income. We handled everything from social media management to email marketing campaigns for businesses across 3 states. The company had real employees paying real taxes and generating substantial revenue. The breakthrough moment came when a local business magazine contacted me for an interview about young entrepreneurs. The feature article included photos of my team and detailed our clients' success stories. Seeing my business presented as a legitimate company rather than a student side project felt surreal. My parents had no idea that their daughter was building something significant while they focused entirely on Lily's conventional college experience. The knock on my apartment door came at 9 p.m. on a Tuesday night in March, when I was juggling client emails and homework assignments. I opened it to find Lily standing in the hallway with mascara streaked down her cheeks and her usually perfect appearance completely disheveled. She had never visited my apartment before, and seeing her in my cramped converted dining room seemed surreal. Through tears, she confessed that she was failing her senior thesis and desperately needed my help to graduate on time. My first instinct was bitter satisfaction. The golden child who had everything handed to her was finally struggling while I had maintained perfect grades despite working 60 hours per week. Part of me wanted to remind her that she had received 4 years of support and encouragement while I had been left to figure everything out alone. But seeing her genuine panic and desperation triggered a compassion I didn't expect to feel. Despite years of unfair treatment, she was still my sister. I cleared space at my tiny desk and asked her to explain the thesis requirements. Her project focused on marketing strategies for nonprofit organizations, but she had procrastinated for months, assuming the work would be manageable. The research was incomplete, the analysis was superficial, and her writing lacked focus or clear arguments. Worse yet, she had only 3 weeks until the final deadline. As I reviewed her draft, I realized that college had been so easy for her that she never developed the work ethic necessary for challenging projects. Our late night study sessions revealed the stark differences in how we had experienced university life. While I scheduled every hour around work obligations and academic deadlines, Lily had enjoyed a carefree college experience filled with social activities and leisurely studying. She had never worked a job during school and relied entirely on our parents for financial support. Her biggest stress had been choosing which party to attend on weekends while I was calculating whether I could afford groceries after paying rent. Lily watched in amazement as I managed client calls during our study breaks and handled business emergencies between helping her with research. She began asking questions about my schedule and seemed shocked to learn that I typically worked until 2 a.m. before waking up at 5:30 for my coffee shop shift. When she discovered that I often skipped lunch to save money or worked through meals to meet deadlines, her expression shifted from surprise to horror. The turning point came when she asked why I never complained to our parents about the overwhelming pressure of financing my own education. I explained that complaining would have been pointless since they had already decided I wasn't worth their investment. For the first time, we had an honest conversation about the favoritism that had shaped our entire lives. Lily admitted she had always known she was treated differently, but never understood the full extent of the inequality. She began recounting moments from our childhood that she now viewed through a different lens. The elaborate birthday parties she received while mine were simple family dinners. The expensive clothes and equipment our parents bought for her activities, while I was told to make do with secondhand items. The constant praise and encouragement she received for mediocre achievements, while my genuine accomplishments were dismissed or ignored. She realized that her entire self-concept had been built on unearned advantages. Over the following weeks, Lily's perspective on our family dynamics changed completely. She started declining expensive gifts from our parents and insisted on finding part-time work to cover her personal expenses. When Mom offered to pay for her spring break trip, Lily refused and chose to stay on campus to work on her thesis instead. She began experiencing the independence I had been forced to develop years earlier. Our relationship transformed from distant siblings to genuine friends united by shared understanding. Lily started spending time at my apartment not just for academic help, but because she preferred the authentic atmosphere to her comfortable dorm room that now felt tainted by unearned privilege. She met my roommates and learned about the community I had built among other students who were working their way through college. As graduation approached, Lily learned about the recognition I would be receiving for my academic and entrepreneurial achievements. She was shocked that our parents knew nothing about my business success or the honors I had earned. When she mentioned my accomplishments during family phone calls, our parents responded with polite disinterest that confirmed their fundamental inability to see my worth. The final catalyst came when Lily discovered the full extent of the graduation ceremony honors being planned for me. She realized that our parents expected to attend solely to celebrate her mediocre achievement while remaining completely unaware of my extraordinary accomplishments. She made a decision that surprised us both. She committed to standing with me at graduation and ensuring that our parents finally understood which daughter had truly succeeded, despite their lack of support. The email from Dean Rodriguez arrived on a Thursday morning in February, while I was responding to client messages between classes. The subject line read, Outstanding Student Speaker Selection, and I assumed it was a mass announcement about graduation ceremony details. When I opened it, my heart stopped. The university had selected me as the student commencement speaker based on my academic excellence and extraordinary entrepreneurial achievements. The honor came with a personal letter from President Harlow, requesting a meeting to discuss my speech topics and the special recognition planned for graduation day. I sat in the campus coffee shop staring at the email, wondering if this was some kind of mistake. Student speakers were typically chosen from a pool of candidates nominated by faculty members, which meant my professors had been advocating for me without my knowledge. The email mentioned that my combination of perfect grades and successful business ventures made me an ideal representative of student achievement. My parents had no idea this honor existed or that their daughter had been selected from thousands of graduating students. 2 weeks later, another email changed everything again. The National Collegiate Business Innovation Competition had announced the winners, and my digital marketing agency had claimed first place. The victory came with $50,000 in business funding and national industry exposure that would transform my small operation into a serious enterprise. The competition judges praised my innovative approach to serving small businesses and my ability to scale services while maintaining quality. The university newspaper featured my win on the front page with a photo of me accepting the award. The business department began treating me like a celebrity after the competition results were announced. Professor Martinez, who taught my entrepreneurship course, started using my company as a case study in his lectures. Students who had never spoken to me before were asking for advice about starting their own ventures. The department secretary mentioned that several faculty members had been documenting my achievements throughout college, preparing materials for some kind of special presentation. Dean Rodriguez called me into his office 3 weeks before graduation with a mysterious smile that suggested he knew something I didn't. He explained that the university administration had been following my story for months and wanted to ensure that graduation day properly recognized my accomplishments. He mentioned conversations with President Harlow about creating a meaningful tribute that would inspire other students facing similar obstacles. When I asked for details, he simply said that graduation would be memorable and that my parents would finally understand what their daughter had achieved. The job offer arrived through my university email account on a Tuesday afternoon that felt like any other day until I opened the attachment. Alexander Global Consulting had extended a formal offer for a business strategy analyst position with a starting salary of $90,000 annually, plus performance bonuses. The figure exceeded my father's current income by $15,000. The offer letter mentioned that my academic record and practical business experience made me an exceptional candidate for their expansion team. I called the hiring manager to confirm the details and learned that my professors had been quietly recommending me to industry contacts for months. My combination of theoretical knowledge and hands-on entrepreneurial experience was exactly what consulting firms needed. The position would allow me to maintain ownership of my digital marketing agency while gaining experience with Fortune 500 clients. The salary alone would eliminate my student debt within 2 years. The phone call from Business Weekly magazine came as the biggest surprise of all. They wanted to feature me as their cover story on rising entrepreneurial talent, highlighting my journey from rejection to success. The reporter had learned about my story through university press releases and was fascinated by how family dismissal had motivated extraordinary achievement. The magazine planned to publish the article during graduation week, ensuring maximum exposure for my accomplishments. Unknown to me, the university had been preparing additional surprises for graduation day. During my final meeting with Dean Rodriguez, he revealed that the Board of Trustees had approved the establishment of the Emma Wilson Resilience Scholarship. The scholarship would provide financial support to students who demonstrated exceptional determination despite facing significant obstacles. My name would be permanently associated with supporting others who needed encouragement to pursue their dreams. The business department faculty had created a comprehensive presentation about my achievements that would be shared during the graduation ceremony. They had compiled 4 years of documentation, including my academic transcripts, business competition victories, client testimonials, and media coverage. The presentation would ensure that everyone in attendance understood the magnitude of what I had accomplished while completely financing my own education. My story had become legendary within the business school, even though my parents remained completely unaware of my success. Professors used my experience to motivate struggling students, and administrators referenced my achievements when discussing the value of perseverance. The contrast between my family's perception and my actual accomplishments had created a situation where graduation day would deliver revelations that would shock everyone who had underestimated me. As graduation approached, I felt calm confidence rather than nervous anticipation. The recognition would finally make my achievements visible to the people who had dismissed my potential for years. The graduation ceremony at Westfield University began with families filing into the massive auditorium, clutching cameras and programs, while searching for seats with the best views. My parents arrived 15 minutes early carrying a bouquet of roses intended for Lily and a small disposable camera that had seen better days. They chose seats in the middle section close enough to capture photos of their golden child receiving her diploma, but far enough back to avoid the expense of premium seating. Dad adjusted his tie while Mom smoothed her dress as they prepared to celebrate what they assumed would be Lily's moment of triumph. I watched from the staging area as graduates organized themselves alphabetically for the processional march. My cap and gown felt different knowing that this ceremony would reveal truths my parents had refused to acknowledge for years. Lily squeezed my hand before we separated into our respective lines, offering a nervous smile that showed she understood the magnitude of what was about to unfold. The musical prelude began, and we filed into the auditorium under bright lights that illuminated hundreds of proud family members ready to celebrate their children's achievements. President Harlow welcomed the audience with standard remarks about academic excellence and bright futures before transitioning to the special recognitions portion of the ceremony. My parents sat forward in their seats, expecting to hear Lily's name called for some minor honor they could brag about to relatives. Instead, President Harlow announced that this year's student commencement speaker had been selected based on extraordinary academic achievement combined with exceptional entrepreneurial success. The confusion on my parents' faces was visible even from the stage as he called my name to approach the podium. Walking across that stage felt like crossing a bridge between my old life and everything I had built despite their rejection. The auditorium fell silent as I adjusted the microphone and looked out at the sea of faces, including my parents, who sat frozen in bewilderment. I began my address by acknowledging that success often comes not from the support we receive, but from the strength we develop when that support is absent. My speech focused on redefining success as something that comes from internal conviction rather than external validation. I spoke about students who work multiple jobs while maintaining perfect grades, and entrepreneurs who build businesses from nothing because they refuse to accept limitations placed on them by others. The audience responded with increasing enthusiasm as I described the power of proving doubters wrong through action rather than words. My parents' expressions shifted from confusion to recognition as they began to understand that their daughter was delivering a speech about overcoming the exact treatment they had given me. The real shock came when President Harlow returned to the podium to announce the academic honors for our graduating class. He began with magna cum laude recipients before moving to summa cum laude graduates, and finally to the single student who had achieved valedictorian status. When he called my name again, my parents' faces drained of color as they realized their dismissed daughter had outperformed every student in the university. The applause grew thunderous as he announced my perfect 4.0 GPA maintained, while working 30 hours per week and building a successful business. President Harlow continued with revelations that hit my parents like physical blows. He announced my victory in the National Collegiate Business Innovation Competition with its $50,000 prize and my acceptance of a prestigious consulting position with a starting salary that exceeded my father's current income. Each announcement drew gasps from the audience as they learned about achievements that had been hidden from the family who should have been celebrating them all along. The moment that broke my parents completely came when President Harlow revealed that I had accomplished everything while fully financing my own education without any family support. He explained to the entire audience that I had worked multiple jobs, taken out loans, and built a business to pay for college while maintaining academic excellence. The contrast with Lily, who had received full parental funding for mediocre performance, was stark and humiliating. The establishment of the Emma Wilson Resilience Scholarship drew a standing ovation that lasted several minutes. President Harlow explained that the scholarship would support students who demonstrated exceptional determination despite facing significant obstacles. My name would be permanently associated with the university's commitment to recognizing achievement, regardless of background or family support. The audience rose to their feet in appreciation while my parents remained seated looking shell-shocked. Extended family members who had attended the ceremony began approaching my parents with questions about why they had never mentioned my accomplishments. Aunts and uncles who had listened to years of bragging about Lily's minor achievements were horrified to learn that the truly successful daughter had been hidden from view. The whispered conversations and pointed looks created a social reckoning that matched the personal one. When my parents approached me after the ceremony, their attempts at congratulations felt hollow and desperate. They stumbled through apologies and explanations that revealed their complete failure to understand what they had done. I responded with polite distance, making clear that their approval was no longer necessary or relevant to my success. I walked away with grandmother Eleanor and Lily, having chosen the family members who had actually supported my journey. Starting my position at Alexander Global Consulting felt like entering a completely different world from the cramped apartment and multiple jobs that had defined my college years. The downtown office building stretched 30 floors into the Detroit skyline, with floor-to-ceiling windows and marble lobbies that screamed success. My starting salary of $90,000 plus performance bonuses meant I was earning more than my father, who had 25 years of experience in his field. The irony wasn't lost on me that the daughter they considered unworthy of investment was now out-earning the man who had dismissed my potential. My digital marketing agency continued operating alongside my consulting career, creating a dual income stream that most people my age couldn't imagine. The business had grown to serve 43 clients across 6 states, with monthly revenue exceeding $15,000. The valuation had reached $200,000 based on consistent profits and long-term client contracts. What started as a desperate attempt to pay for textbooks had become a legitimate enterprise that generated more money than many established companies. The Business Weekly cover story changed everything about my professional visibility. The magazine featured a full-page photo of me in my consulting office with the headline, "From Rejection to Revenue: How Family Dismissal Fueled Entrepreneurial Fire." The article detailed my journey from being denied college funding to building multiple income streams while maintaining perfect grades. Within weeks of publication, I received invitations to speak at business conferences and universities across the Midwest. My story resonated with audiences who understood the power of proving doubters wrong through sustained achievement. Speaking engagements opened doors I never expected to walk through. The Detroit Chamber of Commerce invited me to address their annual Small Business Summit, where I shared strategies for scaling service-based companies. 3 universities requested presentations about entrepreneurship and resilience for their business programs. Each speaking fee ranged from $5,000 to $10,000, turning my personal story into another revenue stream. The professional network expanded exponentially as industry leaders began recognizing my expertise in digital marketing and business development. I decided to use my growing influence to create opportunities for students facing similar obstacles. The Emma Wilson Resilience Scholarship at Westfield University provided $10,000 annually to students who demonstrated exceptional determination despite significant challenges. The scholarship criteria focused on academic achievement combined with evidence of overcoming family rejection or financial hardship. Applications poured in from students whose stories reminded me of my own struggles with unsupportive families and limited resources. My parents' attempts at reconciliation became increasingly awkward as they struggled to understand the magnitude of what they had dismissed. Dad would call with forced enthusiasm about articles he found online, mentioning my achievements. Mom started forwarding business advice articles she thought might interest me, as if I hadn't already built successful ventures without her input. Their efforts felt hollow because they were responding to public recognition rather than genuine belief in my abilities. The daughter they had written off was now being celebrated nationally while they scrambled to claim some connection to my success. The relationship with Lily evolved into something genuine and supportive as she completed her own transition into independence. She had found work at a nonprofit organization, earning modest wages but gaining satisfaction from meaningful contributions. Our conversations now focused on mutual respect and shared understanding rather than the childhood dynamics that had separated us. She often visited my apartment, which I had upgraded to a two-bedroom space with actual windows and modern appliances. We would spend evenings discussing our different paths and the lessons learned from our family's favoritism. Additional programs emerged from my commitment to helping others overcome similar obstacles. I established a mentorship network connecting successful entrepreneurs with students from unsupportive families. The program provided both financial guidance and emotional support for young people who needed encouragement to pursue their dreams. Monthly workshops covered topics like securing funding without family cosigners and building professional networks when traditional connections weren't available. Business schools began using my story as a case study in their entrepreneurship and family business courses. Students analyzed how rejection could become motivation and how financial constraints could force creative solutions that led to greater success. Professors assigned my Business Weekly interview as required reading for courses about overcoming adversity in business development. The case study highlighted how being underestimated could become a competitive advantage when channeled into focused determination. Looking back, I realized that being dismissed by my parents had forced me to develop qualities that served me far beyond college graduation. The independence I learned through necessity became confidence in professional settings. The resourcefulness required to finance my education translated into innovative solutions for client challenges. The resilience built through years of rejection became the foundation for sustained success in competitive industries. Their inability to see my potential had paradoxically created the circumstances that allowed me to exceed even my own expectations for achievement. The most profound lesson from my journey is that your worth doesn't depend on who recognizes it. My parents' inability to see my potential said nothing about my actual capabilities and everything about their limited perspective. Their rejection forced me to develop an unshakable belief in myself that no external validation could match. When you stop waiting for others to affirm your value, you discover power you never knew existed. If you've ever been underestimated or dismissed by people who should have supported you, remember that their vision doesn't define your reality. Share your story in the comments below.